and welcome back to another episode of Mythology Monday. I'm your friendly host, Alice Hanov, and we're here to talk about all the different aspects of my world in the Head, the Heart, and the Heir series, which will be debuting in June of this year. Today we're going to talk about the world as a whole. And so the world that I have created is called Torian. This is my lovely map of my world. As many of you are fantasy fans, I'm sure we are big fans of the maps. So the world itself is called Torian. Come a little closer and try to show you. And as you can see, up at the top here are the Forbidden Lands. This is a special part of the world where all of the sorcerers live. It does not really get brought up. It gets brought up a little bit in the earlier books, but it doesn't really play as large of a role until about book 3 in the series, which is currently right now getting ready to go into developmental edits. So yes, I do know what is happening in several of the stories, not just in book 1. So the main kingdoms you're going to be seeing in book 1 are these ones here, which is the Kingdom of Dayton. As I mentioned last week, the Kingdom of Dayton is where Prince Aaron is from, and his father, King Emmerich, and his mother, Queen Ginevra, have been ruling there for decades. The other kingdom is the Kingdom of Warren over here, which is the one right on the water and is ruled by King Edward. King Edward is the father of Princess Alexandria, or Elizabeth. Elizabeth is her formal name. Alex is how she's called by her friends. And so this is the kingdom where she is from. They are a merchant kingdom. Lots of great things happening over here. And this is where she was when her mother was murdered, and she was spirited away all the way across the kingdom to her father's best friend and ally, the Kingdom of Dayton. And it's in Dayton where she disappeared. So all of these lovely woods around here are referred to as the Dark Forest, and she was hidden in this dark forest for 12 years, which is why it was so hard for anybody to ever find her. The other reason nobody ever really went to find her is no one had known for certain who it was that murdered her mother. Clearly Alex was aware, and it took her many years to tell her dear friend Stefan and her protector what had actually gone down on the day her mother died, but before that, no one could prove who did it. And many people suspected it was her grandfather. And because of that, no one was willing to risk getting her as long as her grandfather, King Arthur, was still alive. So it isn't until the end of the novella and the beginning of the novel where he's finally on his deathbed and they're able to try to find their lost princess to bring her home because it's finally safe. Whether or not he was able to do anything to her for many years was irrelevant. As king, he would have had the power, the influence, and the money to be able to pay other people to do things to her. So the hope was that once he dies, the money would dry up and then people would no longer be able to do anything nasty or terrible to her. But so as you can see, the kingdom is rather large, and being able to travel through the dark forest and get to all the lovely people and little towns there can take a great deal of effort for them, which is also why it takes them several months once they leave here to have even a chance at finding her. Now, north of them are the lovely Agra mountainscapes. And up on top of the Agra mountains is the Kingdom of the Betruger. The Betruger are the enemies of Dayton. They've been fighting a war with each other for almost as long as Dayton and Warren have been allies. Aaron can't really explain why the war started or what's been going on with it. All we know is that these two kingdoms have been at each other for centuries. And while the kingdoms might be a little bit tired of it, it doesn't mean they're going to stop. So this is something that everyone is aware of, is that there's always been a war going on between them, which is the reason that the Kingdom of Dayton is as military as it is. They are a very strong kingdom. They produce the knights and soldiers and guards for all the other kingdoms in the world of Torian. And it's also why the majority of the people in the Kingdom of Dayton tend to be ghostly pale. They live in the woods. They run around in armor all day. They don't really get a lot of sunlight, so they're kind of translucent, ghostly pale people. You'll learn more about that next week when we start talking about the kingdoms. But for now, just know that the Kingdom of Warren is out in the sunshine, on the sea, and the Kingdom of Dayton are in armor under trees all day. So you can tell a little bit, most likely, where the families are coming from. To the south is what is referred to as the Southern Kingdoms. We don't go into a lot of depth with these kingdoms in the stories in general. I will go over them just for your own knowledge because it's kind of fun to know. But we have the Kingdom of Hessen, which is the closest attached to the Kingdom of Dayton. We have the Kingdom of Fans. There is the Kingdom of Darren, which is right along the river here. Then there's the Kingdom of Baron, which is also on the river on the bottom. The Kingdom of Madras and the Kingdom of Orion. Orion is right along the Orion Sea, and so similar to Warren are a merchant and shipping and trading type of kingdom. Hessen tends to stick with Dayton most of the time. They're very close neighbors to each other. They get along pretty decently. And especially with Dayton being as large as it is, they Hessen doesn't tend to mess with them. They just kind of do what they're told, which is how it is. As you can see, the Betrüger also have a port here, but they've been known more to trade with the sorcerers than they have with the other people. So the way that the world of Torian works is that everybody in this whole aspect here are simply human beings. They are all different skin color, hair color, eye color, just like we would see in a normal world. But the different races come into play with the sorcerers. So in the world here, we have humans and we have sorcerers. And in the human world, or the human part of the world, there are a small handful of sorcerers that do live in the world of Torian. And the majority of them live in Dayton, because here you will find the head sorcerer of the Kingdom of Dayton, which is Murloc, and his son and sorcerer's apprentice, Majestai. Now, they are related to the Princess Alexandria because her mother was related to that. So the three of them make up pretty much all the sorcerers in the world of Torian, which is why they are very rare, and so makes her a very different sort of person in their world. So yeah, next week I will begin by talking about the individual kingdoms, and that will probably take us a couple of weeks, because how I came up, I'll just give you a hint now, how I came up with these kingdoms, each individually of the major ones, and the sorcerer world, I combined a race from Star Trek, a historical country, and a city in Greek mythology. So it is very unlikely that anyone will be able to duplicate what I have done with these kingdoms, because I have a very strange way of coming up with the backgrounds and everything from my kingdoms. So I hope you'll join me next week. We will probably start with either the Kingdom of Warren or Dayton. You'll have to come back next week to see. So make sure you subscribe so that you can get all the fun intel on my book as we move towards the release date of June 14th. Have a nice day.